there, Ren Faire fans. It's time for Ren Talks. I'm Victoria Van Arnam.
And I'm Nicole Skelly.
And I'm Olivia Harding.
And today we're back with our special guest, Kaitlin Chin.
Hi!
Hello.
I'm still here.
Yeah. It's true. It's magic, really. So, in between making face noises here, we have been talking about a bunch of fun, like, little stories about our wildest performances. So, my weirdest performance wasn't at a Ren Fair. I mean, we're all put into different situations that are, like, really bizarre at fairs, all right? So, like, it's always going to be, like, raining, or it's too sunny, or you just can't see because there's dust, or you're allergic to the sight, or, you know, like, there's all sorts of things that you have to overcome when you perform at fairs. But my weirdest one, my grandma helps put on birthday parties for nursing homes. And so I was at home, and she's like, oh, you're a musician, you can come and play at the nursing home. And as one does what one's grandmother says one is going to do. Thusly. And so I show up, and it turns out that the nursing home birthday gig was double booked. With the other performer was a electronic clarinet gentleman. Complete with MIDI soundtrack in the background.
That's amazing.
What a specific niche.
It was.
Wow.
It was a really cool looking thing.
Imagine him being little, like,
Yeah.
Mom and Dad, when I grow up, I want to play the electric clarinet with sound effects. Be like, you have aspirations, kid. I will fund your music career. Go for it. Like,
Yep. I mean, I imagine that's precisely how that went down. He had a great backup, you know, band in a box kind of situation, and we proceeded to throw down electric clarinet and hammer dulcimer for the next 30 minutes. Yeah.
Did you battle?
Yeah.
We went for it, you know, because I'm not one to back down from a challenge. So
Yes.
I was like, right on, I'm here.
That's I would give you the Paul Hollywood shake right now if I were there.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, well done. I'm not Paul Hollywood, and this is not the Great British Baking Show, but I don't care. That's how good that is. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, when you haul a piece of equipment that large around with you, you know, it's like, once I set that thing up, I'm not tearing it down again. We're gonna play. So yeah.
I
good.
have questions though. I have questions. Okay, were you in the same room?
Yes.
Were you in the same, like, area of the room, or was he, like, over there and you were...
I stood next to him in a very acoustically, like, tiled room, so it was just, like, bouncing everywhere, so the dulcimer sounded like, you know, a hurricane, and,
Like
you know,
a hurricane! I'm good, I'm sorry. Victoria! We have another person who randomly sings phrases in the middle of our interview. I'm not the only one.
I know. And she does it right into her microphone, too, so I don't have to put her up in post.
I just...
Oh, she's snorting coffee. Don't snort coffee, Kaitlin. That's not good for your nose holes.
You don't know. That's in my nose holes. Or maybe you do.
I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Okay, good. Just kidding.
Yep. I signed that paper. And
It was a very important piece of paperwork.
it really was. I took my time with the signature and used a special pen. Anyway, Victoria. So did you try to, okay, were you playing at the same time or did you try to, like, push him over, like, knock him over, or, like, unplug his clarinet to get him to stop?
Right? I mean, well, like, that's the thing, is that, like, I wasn't plugged in, but he was, and so, like, I couldn't beat him acoustically, like, on sheer volume.
That's
but I could beat
dirty.
him. Right, I know, but I could beat him on, like, number of notes. So, like, I started running some jigs on his ass, and, you know, it was just, like, that took it pretty far.
And then did you, like, go on a date afterwards and get married or anything? Because I feel like that's the starting of a Hallmark movie.
Yeah. Did that happen?
I'm going to fall off my chair.
No.
like my pillow.
No.
My bum pillow.
I will do well if I never see him again. The poor man. Because like honestly, like he was put in such a weird position too. Because it's just like all of us, he's already prepped and ready to do his gig. He's going, toot some doodles for some old folks. It's going to be a good time. And
No. You cannot say it like that. No.
Some doodles for some old folks.
I'm going to write that down. And I'm going to use that in your description on the screen guide.
Toot some doodles for some old folks is going to be the name of this episode.
Thanks. Doot some toodles?
Yeah, zoot some noodles.
Oh, yeah. Doodle doot. Wearing your boot suit. Boogie.
Loot some koodles.
Anyway, so the poor thing, and he had, and then here comes this crazy woman with a bunch of instruments, like with a whole string thing, and then we try and play together, and it was the thing. We did it. Luckily the clientele there really couldn't, actually hear at all, so it was okay. It was all okay in the end, and my grandma was so happy. She asked me if we wanted to play together again, and I was like, I delightfully refrain from.
Oh, I think I'm booked for any time he's playing.
Yep, all the times. I am leaving the state. Thank you.
Muffin.
But yeah. So that's my weirdest performance story, probably for Scherzies. Like for right now, anyway. Stay tuned.
Challenge accepted. I can't think of anything that was like a full-on all-encompassing performance experience that was weird. But when I had the sword fighting show, we had multiple times when children or a dog would wander on stage, like during a sword fight, and it would be like we'd fight, and then I think we would turn away from each other, and one of us would usually see, like one time I feel like it was this big Irish wolfhound that was just on the stage, wandered away from her owner, who I think couldn't move very well, so she couldn't come down and get the dog. Definitely had kids. We'll have kids sit like at the lyric stage in Maryland where we were, is like, 6-7 inches off the ground, and there would be kids sitting along the edge, and we're like, why are you there? Do you see this sword? It's bigger, it's taller than you are. Why? Where are your parents?
They're like, I just want to touch it.
Yeah.
Want to touch it?
Yeah. They'd be like, are your swords real? And we'd be like, yes, they are. Can I see it? No. You can see it from here.
It's really big. You can see it from far away.
Yeah, but other than little things like that, I can't remember anything that was like super cray in any, like, just a little bit of that every so often. You're like, why is my show right next to this big loud show or the Joust at the same exact time? Those little wonky, like, why is it here? Whose microphone is coming through this system?
Oh, yeah.
This prop broke in the middle. Yeah. But
Some of your show just starts broadcasting another show, and you're like, huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of anything like, I guess it's been fairly tame, knock on wood. Although I'd really like to play with an electric clarinet.
I'll look up his number.
Yeah. Well, I think Victoria, you're winning in the weirdness factor right now.
I have a story, but I'll let Kaitlin go first.
Until Liv comes around. I think Liv's holding on to something. She's
right, I know. I'm like, what is it? I have a couple. Like, I have a couple really bizarre ones that are quite. So I've performed all over the world, but I've performed all over the world. And I was in Malaysia for 4 months, as part of a residency, Annunciation. And this wasn't my show, but I did see it. And so here's the thing about performing in Malaysia is, like, they don't really do tipping, and so they created this busker festival, which is hilarious because it's like, why would you do a busker festival in a society that doesn't tip, that specifically doesn't tip? And so, like, we had to institute the, like, oh, this is what you do. So teaching an entire new audience that was in this series of, like, hotels that were all kind of mashed together in, like, a resort sort of thing, and then there was also a casino like several casinos that were attached, and they brought people in, and we like lived there. You know, I just lived in this hotel complex for a chunk of time. And one of the other performers, his name is Sam Squid, and I adore him to bits and pieces. And he does this amazing contortion act, right? And he's got these like little tiny cutoff shorts and like little suspenders, and he's like 6'6", right? Like this big Australian dude with like a giant mohawk, and super cool. And so he's doing this contortion show, and this family just like puts their kids up on this stage, right? They're like, here we go. We're just gonna like put all these, and so they all start kind of like butt scooting forward. It's like, what is happening? This is really strange. And Sam was like, you can't be, like, you need to not be on this, because I don't remember if he was gonna do whip or something, but like he needed to have space. And so he starts shoving one of them with his shoe, right? And so this kid is just like sitting here like, you know, and he's literally just like shoving the kid with his foot off, you know, towards the edge of the stage. And he's like on mic, like, I'm just gonna off the stage. Mom, Dad, anyone? No? And like to the point where at the end of it, he just like the kid right off the stage, and like the family just stood there and laughed at him, which is like,
oh my God.
I don't understand. I don't get, and like I had a lot of really good experiences there as well, in addition to a bunch of like really bizarre, strange experiences. So like Malaysia's a weird place. Kuala Lumpur is a weird place. Genting Highlands is a weird place. It's like a weird space ranger area that we don't understand. Like it's a whole different universe over there. Sorry, you okay? Like, yeah, and like so the idea of just like literally shoving a kid off a stage, and not like a stage, like a stage.
Oh, wow.
I guess he'd been dropped before.
Yeah, and I know it's like, yeah. So that's one of the weird stories.
So we were hired by the same person twice. And the craziest performance experience I've ever had is the second of those 2 times. But I will not talk about that time because it is highly unsafe for work. And
I just remembered what.
Yes.
That it's.
But it was
another time, friends.
Another time. But that experience was Music the Gathering and Tom Leidenfrost, the accordionist, and Tom, to this day, like the funniest in context quote of all time, I think, came out of that gig. So speak to me personally about it. I'll tell you all about it. But the first thing that this person was hired us for, the way it happened was we were at the New York Renaissance Festival for a weekend only. Such a good festival.
It's my favorite show, literally.
We noticed that there was this family that like stood there and like watched us for a long time, was really interested, like that kind of like your ideal audience member, like this kind of audience member. And afterwards, we got 2 messages. One from, I believe they were married, a husband, and one from the wife. And the husband said, we adored you at the festival. It is my wife's birthday coming up. We are having a party for her. Can I hire you to come and perform at her party? Great. Simultaneously, we get another message from the wife. She knows nothing about it. It's a surprise. She says, thank you so much. I enjoyed your music. I just escaped from a cult where women are not allowed to perform music, so I appreciated it a lot. And so we're like, okay, let's do this.
A lot to unpack right there.
Lots to unpack. And so this party is taking place in a speakeasy discotheque in the back of a tiny vegan pizzeria in the East Village of New York.
I mean, that's very New York. That is very New York. Yeah.
Very New York. And I look it up because I'm like, is this place legit? We don't know anything about these people. And it had been like, the space was legit, but it had been raided by the police many times for like liquor licenses expiring, stuff like that. And I'm like, not great, but at least we know it's like, it exists online. People have raided it. It's a place that exists. Cool. So we show up. And this place is tiny. It's like, you don't sit in this pizzeria, you grab a slice and leave. And there are pizza spatulas all over the wall. And there's one on the wall that's marked with a V. And you go over, and that's the door handle, and you open it, and you go back into this like long, skinny discotheque with disco balls and stuff. And we show up, when we were asked to set up, and like no one is there, the husband is not there, no one knows what's going on. There's the guy who's serving pizza who like lets us in and shows us where all the outlets are. The party was supposed to start at a certain time. The first guest, not the person who was in charge of the party, showed up, I think, maybe half an hour after that time. And like we were set to start at start time. And so we were like, okay. And slowly more people come in, so we start playing. And this was when we weren't even Music the Gathering, so we were very folksy folk music. And we had a few songs under our belt that were a bit more like beat driven and stuff, but quite folksy, all acoustic. And we had these people coming in, and the best way I can describe them are they were like the age and the vibe of having been some of the people at the very first year of Burning Man. Like that's the kind of vibe we're getting off these people. And they're coming in and they're very polite because it's definitely not the kind of music they're expecting walking into this space, but they're sitting there and like, okay, great. And then finally the birthday girl walks in and she's so surprised to see us. She's so happy. She's dancing. And we talk to her a little bit. And it turns out that she just escaped from the Hasidim. And we were like, okay, so like a recognized cult. Got it. Okay, so it's not just like some Kool-Aid drinking cult. She had been Hasidic, and now she had escaped from that community, was embracing this whole other side of herself. And we learned that she's like become part of like the nightlife, like she's a big member of nightlife in New York now and stuff like that. And so we are getting near the end of our show, and we're already going over a little bit because we started so late, and we asked the husband, we say like, do you want us to do another couple songs? We don't see the next act. We know that there's an act after us. Should we keep going? And he goes, yeah, do another song. And so we do another song, and right at the tail end of this song, I look at the back and there are policemen showing up. And I was like, oh no, it's another raid on this place in the middle of this woman's birthday party. I feel so bad. And like we're finishing up our final chords and they're like walking in, and then I notice something, and I notice that all the policemen are very tall and like very muscular. And then as our last chord rings out, electronic music comes on, and it's like the Magic Mike maiden song, and I was like, oh, we were the opening act for strippers. Got it.
What a corner turn there.
Right?
Nice.
And the best part was then we had to, and like anyone who's done a gig in New York knows, had the miserable experience of trying to unload on it was on First Avenue in the middle of, like, after your show. So we're scooching past these people who are just getting sweatier and closer with our, like, drum stands and stuff. Like, excuse me, pardon me, taking multiple trips as more and more clothes are being removed. It was hilarious.
One time I did get offered, so this is again in Malaysia where you're on the moon. I did like extra gigs for this busking thing out in Malaysia, and I had negotiated like, if I do extra work then you're gonna pay me. Like I just get paid a flat rate to go and do stuff, as you know people do. And then instead of paying me, our handler dude was like, what if I just gave you cocaine and strippers? And I was like, no.
Do the strippers have the money that you're gonna pay me, and they're just
because they're gonna make it rain for me? Like, yeah. Is that what's gonna happen? Am I getting paid all in ones, which in ringgits is like 30 cents? So like they're gonna just be throwing quarters at me? Like, is that?
Oh, ouch.
It's making it hail. That's a different thing.
Stressful. I did also have a kid come up and kick me in the shins though one time, like also in Malaysia. So like, don't know. Anything could happen there.
When the Seal Sisters were at Maryland, I don't know if it was our last season or the season before, but we had a pirate show as well. And in the end of the pirate show, we would do a big dramatic death scene, well, like you do at a lot of Renaissance festivals. But we each had like a little squirt bottle of water in our prop baskets. And sometimes my partner would use that when she was dying to like squirted out of her stomach as blood and everything. There was some kid in our audience, and he was 10-ish maybe, and I don't remember. I think he was kind of disruptive. Yeah, no, he was disruptive and like sitting in the front or like standing in the aisle close to us or something. And so he was so disruptive that we made eye contact and we each grabbed our little squirt bottles and started squirting them and then squirted them at the kid, right? Because we were like, haha, it's funny, there's water. That's what my partner would do. She'd squirt it all over. Everyone in the front row would get wet. People love that. Yay. This kid comes on stage, spits at my partner, turns to me, and I go, no, go. I like turned into teacher Miss Skelly for a second, which was so weird because my character is not anything like that. And he like ran up the aisle, and everyone in the audience was like, what just happened? Weird. I have no idea where his parents were. No one came and got him, I don't think. Or two people left right after he ran away. But he did not run back to parents in the audience. It was weird. And then we wrote the entertainment director. The Maryland entertainment director is amazing, and she's so professional and on it, and she's awesome. But we emailed her and we're like, hey, just so you know, this is what happened at our show. We don't think you're gonna get a letter, but in case you do, this is what actually this kid, disruptive, spit at us. Weird. That was the only time, other than kids sometimes sitting at the front of the stage and throwing rocks on the stage because they're bored. Which, how can you be bored at a sword fighting show with two girls?
What?
I don't
know.
Right?
Like, what a weird... What?
Yeah, it's that stage at Maryland is the right height for, like, kids, like, 4 to 7 to sit on their butts on the ground and lean their elbow on the stage. And because it's rocks gravel, they just put it on the stage. Yeah, it's weird. But those are the only bad experiences I've had with kids.
I'm so interested by people who just like don't realize, like maybe it's because we were brought up in performance, but I recognize, like it's almost palpable. I can feel the energy of where you should not go when it comes to a stage. Like you do not step past this point because then you are part of the performance. Like you can almost feel it. But I say that, but there are people who definitely don't feel it. Like one of my favorite moments to watch was in Colorado. I don't know if you were watching this, Victoria, because this was on the stage that you perform on, but Wilson was there. Or that's not your stage. That's the one over. Am I right?
I'm on the Celestial in Colorado.
Yeah. Well, he was in the middle of a show, put in like the fluid into his mouth, and was about to do a trick when a woman like wanders from behind the stage on the phone and sits down on the edge of the stage in the direction he's about to blow fire. And he just, like, he can't speak. He now has a full mouth of gas. He just, like, turns towards the audience, turns back towards this woman, goes over, taps her on the shoulder. She turns around and he just goes...
Well, I mean,
like sign language for leave. And I think my favorite part about this is like there was like a weird karma that happened afterwards because she did leave, but then she came back still on the phone for the start of Zilch, the Taurus Stellars show, and she is loudly like in the audience, clearly trying to find someone, talking on the phone in the middle of his audience while he's trying to start his show, and then finally he goes, "What's her name?" And she's like, she doesn't realize he's speaking to her. He goes, What's her name? And she's like, what? And names the name of the person who she's speaking to on the phone, and like Shirley or something. And he goes, whole audience, ready? 1, 2, 3. And everyone just goes, Shirley! And the woman's like,
oh my God. Sometimes I try to look at myself a little bit and be, because like you were saying, there's an energy that shifts when you are in the performance space. And so sometimes I'm like, what am I not doing that other people don't realize that they shouldn't be that close, or that, yeah. And so I try to, like, before I get super mad or annoyed at the people, I try to look at myself. But the festival stage I perform on in Arizona is like, it's called the Royal Pavilion, and it looks like a pavilion you would find at like a campground, picnic pavilion, right? So it's covered, which is nice, and the stage is like little and cute, and it's really good for an intimate setting for my storytelling shows, except that it is in the loudest portion of the whole entire fair, so you can't hear anything even when I'm mic'd.
And it's right next to the joust field, right? So like...
No, it's on the opposite side of the joust field.
Oh,
yeah, it's up towards the front. It's right next to where the cabriolets hang out in the beginning and the coffee shop. And the coffee shop always has hawkers, so they're always yelling. And there's the village green on the other side that's always got tons of noise. And then there's a stage behind me. And one of my shows is up against Barely Balanced. And their audience is facing my stage, so all of their sound just comes right to my stage. So it's difficult, and it's difficult to hold people's attention, and I can see, okay, 3 rows back, they can't hear me anymore, and that's where they stop paying attention. And because it's benches that's covered and it's right near food, people will come in and sit at the back rows facing the wrong direction, and I get so frustrated, and I'm like, well, I'm not projecting enough, and it's really hard to project, so I'm not going to be mean to myself. But the stage is literally 3 inches off the ground, and I was doing a show and having a good show and having like couple front rows really focused, and this guy just walks right in front of the stage, didn't even look at me, and I'm like, again, I'm not big enough, I don't have the right energy, I'm not flashy enough, so clearly I'm doing something not as good as I could. But he walked like right in the middle of something, and I just kind of looked at him, and the audience kind of was like, what the hell? And he got almost to the end and then realized, or he sat down or something. I was like, did you not... No, this is a stage. This is a stage.
Oh my God.
Even if I'm not on it, it's a stage. Like, I'm doing a thing, like 24 people are watching me, and you didn't notice?
One of my favorite videos, and this wasn't the focus of the video. He just happened to be caught in this video. It's like a patron was taking a video of us on the stage in the Pirates Pub in Colorado. Now, the way this stage is set up, it's not even marked on the map half the time as a stage. It's a lot of people treat us as like background music to when they're eating their lunch, which is a mistake. They find out very quickly, but like we are way too loud for that. But there's a video that someone takes of us, and there's a guy leaning on our stage, like we are performing right there, and he has his back and he's leaning, and he takes a selfie with his turkey leg. And I'm like, that is peak, like, example audience of that stage, like the amount of attention you get at that stage.
So in SoCal, I'm on like the green that's outside of the joust. Have any of you guys been to the SoCal show? So this is the original Renaissance Pleasure Fair. It's a tent show, even though it's been on the same location for like a decade or something. And so they build it up. It's beautiful. You know, like it's actually like, for being kind of in the desert, not really desert in the same way that Arizona's like actually in the desert, but it's in this kind of dusty bowl park area. And so I'm on this like sort of green hill space, and over to one side are the washing wenches, and then like on the other side is the joust. And so I'm at this very odd kind of intersection. Now I love my spot. I actually legit love my spot. And it's normally super great.
Because there's no mud.
No mud at all. Sand everywhere. Get used to it. I'm also right by the Scoops on Tap. There's like an ice cream place that's right over there, and so I'm like, yeah, and we're buddies. So sometimes they're like, here, have some ice cream, and then I'll be like, I'm gonna give you a shout out in my show, and then they're like, here, have some more ice cream, and I'm like, let me just ice cream. You want Kaitlin to like you? Give her coffee and ice cream and whiskey. So I was starting my like beginning curtain speech for the show, which is, it's like 5 minutes long because it's the only talking I do, right? Like the whole show. And then there's a 9-minute section where I do a lot of big, strong stuff and splits and flippy thingies. And then I come down and then I die a little bit, and then everyone claps, and then I ask them for money, because that's how my show structure works. Because at the end, there's no more voice. There's no sound. It's just not going to happen unless if you put me on a mic, and like then trying to put a mic on my head is like a whole other nightmare because I'm sweaty and it's 90 degrees outside. It's not great. So I do all of the talking at the front. And that 5 minutes for my show is very important. It's very important. And I get a little touchy when people start getting like kind of weird in there, you know, where I'm very much like, I need you folks to be right here. We're all going to do like we're going to count through the things that are important. It's important. And so this, like, I'm halfway through my speech and this person just like wanders through my audience and they're all on benches and like, my rig is tall, okay? Big red fabrics, 30-foot tall rig, 6-foot tall Kaitlin with giant eyelashes. Like, it's really hard to miss me, okay? Like
3-foot long eyelashes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. 3-foot long eyelashes.
Yeah. Hello!
You take out the front row. Thwap!
Very obvious that things are happening. And so I'm talking, and this guy walks up, and he's, like, on his phone, and he's like, what's going on here? This sounds like, I don't really know. And so he's just, like, kind of asking what's going on. And I literally, like, on my headset, turned to him and went, it's me. I'm going on right now. And yeah, it was just one of those moments of like where I because that's how, like, and we all know how the festival thing works, where we at the end of the show you collect tips, right? And those tips are very important because that's how we make the majority of our money. And so when people start to interrupt me getting to the point of talking about money, I'm like, I want to execute this carefully and thoughtfully and make sure that
I want to execute this man.
I would like to execute this, but like he came up and he was like interrupting my very careful execution with being like, "What's happening here? I clearly haven't noticed any of this stuff here. That is very obviously the only thing in the middle of this field." The only thing, right? And it was just like one of those moments of like, it's me! What else do I have to do? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Like, I'm probably not great on the mic, but like the same thing of like, there's no more energy. There's no more sound. There's no more, like, there's nothing else that I can give you without shooting glitter out of my boobies. I'm not gonna do that, okay? Like, no!
I mean, you probably get good tips if you did that during your hat line.
We actually super increased how much money we made when we went from having very expensive, fancy unitards that went down to our ankles to booty shorts.
Interesting.
Just let that.
Yeah,
you know,
right?
To like $30 bike tards from Discount Dance. And like, I love Discount Dance. Don't get me wrong. It's not a diss on them at all, but just that moment of going from like, look at my amazing custom-made $400 rhythmic gymnastics leotard that I spent a lot of time and money, like, obtaining. And then they're like, but we're gonna give you way more money with this cute little, like, black Leo.
It's so interesting, the optics of women on stage. Like,
that's a great topic, Liv.
Yeah. We've talked about this. There's a group on the Renaissance Festival circuit of women, like, each festival you go to, there will probably be a gathering where we just like talk about issues like this. But like Asia and I have talked about the fact that there's a weird thing where having 2 women and 1 man on stage makes us oddly unapproachable for the simple reason that people don't know what the situation is. Like, they don't know, is one of them romantically involved with the man? Are they siblings? Like, what's happening? And because there's like this, I don't know, like, we don't get the sort of harassment that a lot of what we've heard of from like either all-female acts or single female on the circuit get.
Here, okay, so like, I personally, for me, and this is not true for all aerialists because I've watched it happen to other aerialists and like had to step in and be like, hi. And I think some of it is because I'm just a very large person, right? Like, up in the air, I look very small. And then people get close to me, and the closer they get, the bigger I get. And
yeah,
so it's like,
we're on screen here, but when you said you're 6 feet tall, you mean like you're actually like you're tall, like you're.
I'm actually 6'1". Like I'm 6'1".
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because I haven't seen you in person ever before, and here we are all in a.
And then
a couple boxes together, like, and for our listeners, yeah. So you're a very tall lady, is what you're
yeah,
conveying,
and then I
so
put shoes on, so I'm actually like 6'2".
And I feel like this is something that they can read on the screen, but you're not, like, I've met a lot of very tall people who, like, can drift into the background. You, like, your whole thing is you know every muscle in your body, you are aware of yourself, and you also, like, project outwards. So that's also
I think that's part of it is because like for me, and not that I'm saying that people are doing, that women are doing something wrong at all. Not like, no. And this is part like where I personally, because of my size, mixed with the fact that I am a spaz, like who has always had energy kind of, it's not here, it's like here, right? And so that, I think that helps a lot. And when I come down off of the fabrics, that doesn't stop. Like, that's just part of who I am as a person. And so it's always like, I very rarely get people coming up and like trying to harass me or be weird or like do odd stuff, because they're just like, oh no, she'll just fall on me from above. Like that's their full expectation. But like when it comes to, I've seen other aerialists who are stronger than I am, right? Which is like a little scary. And then people go up to them and they're just like, yeah, I just want to come to my ass later. And like, and it's like, what made that okay in your brain, you know, or where I've just physically put myself, and this has also happened in the entertainment world where like I as a director am walking around and just like checking on my performers and stuff, and I'll just stand up and insert myself between two people, and it's great because I'm usually like in all blacks and like really tired looking, and so they're like, oh, okay, she's not pretty, she doesn't have makeup on, she's clearly like not part of this like installation or something, and so there's a very jagged difference there. But also then I just walk in and I'm like, can I help you with something? And it's a major energy shift. But like especially at Renaissance fairs, and this is something that I have big feelings on, but where when I was playing at Fantastical, when I first started working at Renaissance fairs, I came up at Bristol, the Bristol Renaissance Fair that's on the border between Wisconsin and Illinois, and it's lovely. Oh my God, like I love that show. And the Fantasticals are these very Cirque style fairy creatures. We were super weird for a while. It was really fun. I was always in like a full bodysuit, but we didn't talk, right? And so people would, and I was much smaller and like not quite as confident in my energy and like taking up space. And so people would come up and tell me, like just say things to me that were sometimes extremely inappropriate and sometimes
I've heard that from the non-speaking acts before. That's a kind of a consistent thing that comes up. If they're a fairy that doesn't speak or a statue that doesn't speak, they'll often get the widest and most varied range of harassments. You know, like there's like somebody looking at you weird, or like other, you know, like actually like harassy kind of thing. So it's like there's things, there's lines, there's different lines. It's like it's what it is, but the non-speaking acts, I've heard that a lot from, so that's interesting to hear that from you as well.
Yeah, but I've also noticed that it's not necessarily just, like, because it happens more with non-speaking acts, non-speaking characters, non-speaking roles, like things where you don't feel like that they're going to answer back, or like they don't have a voice to be able to complain. But it also happens in performance spheres kind of across the board, because there's this understanding, like people put this understanding in their brains that when they purchase a ticket, or like they've paid to be here, so they're able to do kind of what they want. There's sort of that mentality of Westworld, right? Of like, I paid to be here, so this is my time to do whatever it is that I want to do. And not that I'm saying that like people shouldn't feel free to be themselves, but they also sometimes, sorry, I'm putting all these caveats on it, but I'm trying to be, but like, they feel this ownership over the performers and the characters in a way that they wouldn't for something that they have to engage with in a different way. Like they haven't purchased a ticket for it. They haven't, you know, they don't feel like there's been a monetary exchange, therefore they deserve to have those things.
No, I think that's a really smart way of saying it. Like and there's a lack of boundaries too. And because Renaissance Festival is an immersive experience, and that's what we're all going for, is that like we're all here doing the same thing, same time. We're part of the village. We're playing this game of make-believe. Everyone play with us. But the boundaries are not clearly defined. And in real life, they're not clearly defined. And then you get that person who kind of knows the real life boundaries, and they get to a festival where the boundaries are wider, less defined. And even though you still can't go past this boundary, they don't know. Plus they've paid to be there. So they're like, well, I belong here. What am I paying you for? Ownership. Like I have ownership over this. This is my playground.
And somebody asked a question in one of the comments from our previous episodes about like flirting and the concept of that. Like, why is that such a big part of it? It's like, because, you know, the original fairs were called pleasure fairs. You know, they're there to make you feel like, I don't know, loved. Or, I'm talking a little outside of my sphere in this, but like just like the concept of the banter, you know, being so flirtatious
has shifted over time. You know, like when I would equate pleasure then, like when Renaissance fairs first started.
Okay, so like 40 years ago.
Yeah, into like escapism.
Ooh.
Now.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely,
and this is like actor brain kind of stuff and like sociological things, but like where the concept of like, oh, pleasure because this is pleasing, this is interesting, this is different and novel and like exciting in a way that is going to take me out of my daily routine, right? And so that's what that pleasure was. It's the same where words have absolutely shifted over time. And if you look at things that were like colloquialisms, I can't talk today, in the 1890s and now today is like, oh no. And I would equate those two things as kind of being on a level. And so escapism is like, you want to feel like some of those boundaries don't exist, right? And you want to feel wanted. I think a huge thing is when you go to Renaissance fairs, there's this acceptance that happens that a lot of people don't get in any other place. And like,
yep.
Bless Kristen Mansour. Holy cats. She's the entertainment director at SoCal. And she, like, very specifically, we take time, morning meetings before the festival starts, to speak about this, right? To speak about the idea of, like, we are here to create this universe where people are included and elevated. And I've actually 100% stolen that from her and like put it into all of my work that I do across the board and everything that I teach. I talk about inclusion and elevation, but it comes at a cost, right? So like you cannot include and elevate at the cost of yourself because then there will be no one to do that thing. And so you need to also feel protected and included and elevated by all the people that you're working with. And so safety is important, knowing and understanding your boundaries. And one of the things that I loved most of all is when we put an age restriction on people who are allowed to be fantasticals, which a lot of people were like, no, that's a bad thing. And it's like, no, you don't have an understanding of, like, you're still discovering yourself before you're 16 or 18. You continue to discover yourself for the rest of your life and find out what things are okay and not okay, but you don't start to gain that voice until later, especially like where I grew up, not where, but like how I grew up was very much like I was not as good at being outspoken for things that make me comfortable versus uncomfortable, right? And especially in public spheres, it's a different skill that has to be flexed and it has to be taught and has to be shared.
Because I was about to say, because you come from a ballet background, and so you're used to people telling you exactly what you're supposed to move like, look like, and sound, basically like complete control
also
on
touching
that.
You.
Yeah, and used to that. So like, where's the boundary? Where's the what? It's not as much.
Yeah, well, and people, especially because, like, and not that I'm saying that this is true for all fantasticals, or even my experience necessarily, but especially for, like, performers in general, you have to get used to people telling you things about what they believe about you or your character, and you cannot assume that those are true, or that they even have a solid understanding of what that is as a whole. And, like, right? It's like, oh, sorry, you're a different person? What? Like, that doesn't...
I play the harpsichord.
Well, yeah. Even more than that, even more than like they building your character out of like a sort of like mini fandom, is another form of boundary, which isn't as like, as I guess unsafe, like immediately unsafe as sort of like the harassment boundary, but is confusing and can cause issues, is just a simple boundary between character and performer. Because when we were talking about flirting, like, what is flirting beyond just giving someone your full attention in a positive manner? And that's our job. That's literally, like, I mean, sexual flirting aside, but that's our job. And so people will often get confused and think that now I am not only friends with Liv the Druid, I am friends with Olivia Harding, whereas they have never met Olivia once in their entire lives. And I feel like a lot of people have issues realizing that. And it to be fair, it's also a problem on the other end. I've had people who I consider my friends like along the way, when I think that we are friends, Olivia and these people, they'll go, is it okay if we come to this? Like, is it, are we pushing a boundary? And I realize they still aren't sure if they have reached friendship or fan. And like, that is very unclear.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate those people that are like, is it okay if we come to this? Yeah.
Because so much of what we do, and this is part of what Cirque and Nuit, my company, we focus on making people feel seen, right? And a lot of that is even like, because again, the non-speaking characters and stuff, that's something that we've continued to work with, and taking the time to listen to someone, taking the time to like literally just creepily stare deeply into their eyes for 2 minutes, which is stressful in a different way, and not always creepily, but like where you allow yourself to be raw and emotional and intimate with somebody in a way that I know it's like,
No. You're good for it. I'm just.
No, it's fine. It's because that's part of it. You know, it's like, how much are you communicating? How much do they perceive that you are communicating? And it's a very fine line to kind of toe, and to like, it's like this constant just feeling that pendulum swing of where the energy is, and you have to be really sensitive. And so, when you as a performer are living in that space, and then people feel like they have a very intimate relationship with you, and not even necessarily like not sexual, or not like, it doesn't have to be like flirting or something, but they feel this very intimate relationship with you as a performer, and then you in real life is actually like, oh, no. Sorry, that was a whole different bag of potato chips, and now we're gonna like circle over to here. And it's just like a major shift, and people aren't used to that, right? Like, and I think maybe people in other lines of work don't ever discuss it.
Interesting. And there's I love pulling in the older concept of the patron of the arts. So it's like, there used to be such a lovely, like, maybe not lovely, but like a structure for it. It's like, I give this person money and they produce art, and I have, this lovely relationship with them as an artist because we bring this forward together. And it's like, great, that's perfect. But we as Renaissance Faire performers have so many hundreds of small, tiny patrons. And some of them not so tiny, right, for real. But like,
none of them are tiny, but in terms of how much attention we're giving,
height, right.
It gets really dispersed, though.
Yes,
we meet hundreds of people in a day,
right?
Easily.
And they are individually funding and fueling our art and making it possible. And there are a few that like really do the thing. And all of our relationships are not based off of that patronage, but that's the kind of the line that's been set before for those sort of things. And I don't think that there's a very clear concept for it. I love what Patreon is doing, because it is creating, again, that structure, that functional social structure of, I love art. I don't know if I'm on the Siren Pod, but I'm definitely on a couple of the other Renaissance Faire patrons. I give money every month to those shows because I want to see their behind the scenes. I want to hear what they're doing. I want to hear what is going on with them. Or I am totally happy if they don't send me a single email, but that I know that I bought them a coffee that month. Like, I am very okay.
Patreon, and I literally am so bad about posting updates and stuff because, like, I just, and it's not that I don't think about it, but again, the tech thing for me, I'm like, I'm gonna do so many things, and then I'm like, I don't understand how to do this. I'm so sorry, everyone. But I still get, like, a little bit, and it's nice.
Yeah, I also have difficulty with it. I have a real hard time of just being me instead of being a presence. Like, I come from the 90s business concept that, like, everything has to be packaged and perfect and lovely and exactly this way, and it has to look exactly this way. And so, like, here's me. This is, those of you listening can't see it, but, I'm not in full costume. You can see my hair, which is, a whole different, I know. All right, calm down.
Do you guys feel the same way in terms of, like, I just in general have a weird relationship with accepting money. Like, I don't know if it was my upbringing or something, but like, even if I know 100% I deserve it and I've worked for something, I still have weird things about money. And that has compounded drastically in this COVID era of doing things online. Because at a festival, I am sweating my ass off. I have the adrenaline coursing through my veins of being in front of people. I can feel within my body that I have worked hard enough to get money. In other situations where I'm performing, I am also working hard enough to get money, but I don't feel it in the same way. So all this stuff online, when like people actually like give stuff through PayPal, I'm like, do I deserve this? And like I have to have that voice going, yes, do not undermine yourself.
And this is, okay, because this is something that has come up a lot in the aerial community, especially because we, in discussing the COVID pivot, we have all like, had to turn a massive corner for education and for performance and for things like that. And so, here's the thing though, is it doesn't change the skill set. And if anything, we are working harder to continue to bring this to our audiences. And so if anything, we deserve more, which is still weird. Like, and it's hard to say these words out loud, but like over time, because I've been working at Renaissance festivals it is 2020. I've been working at Renaissance festivals for 15 years.
Major props. Oh, yeah, don't cry. Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Woo! Sorry.
It's okay.
I am in my 30s, everyone. In case you wanted to know, my birthday is on November 16th. I will be turning the big 3-3. Scorpio.
Wow.
Scorpio. I like my little cat whiskers. Yeah, so it's my birthday in a month and change. It's fine. So excluding this year, which we're not going to talk about, I have been working at Renaissance festivals for a very long time, and the like getting over the feeling shot, like, because I think what it hit the point for me where money in my tip basket means I can pay my rent. It means that I can take lessons or buy, make sure that my rig is going to stay in shape, or buy a new unitard because there's a massive hole in it, or pay for healthcare, and like that's where it got to for me. And it's not because like we were doing poorly. That's not what it was. It was just like, oh, this is my only source of income. And for people who shift from like having a regular day job or like normal people stuff over to this, I think actually transition into that much quicker versus people who grew up in the arts. And this is like, oh no, I would be doing this anyways, even if I wasn't getting paid. Right? Because you love your art. You love your art, and you have that fear that other people aren't going to love it as much as you do. I think for aerialists and for physical performers, it's a little bit easier because we literally see it on our bodies. Right? Like I have arthritis in the shoulder. I'm currently dealing with a nerve condition. I have a rib that likes to just kind of pop out. Like I have tingling in my fingers here. I've dislocated this collarbone. I broke my foot one time. Like there's like all the things that have happened. It's something that it's because aerialist it's not if you're going to get injured, it's when. And it's usually because you were doing something dumb. Like, to be clear, I sprained one ankle while I was teaching a bunch of kids Gangnam Style, and I fell over.
That's a story.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's basically the story. I wish there was more that was exciting in there, but I just fell over. And then
which part of the dance?
Don't do it
this
now.
one, right? And like doing the shuffle back and forth, side to side, and then I just went like over, and I heard the ankle pop, and I went, my career in my head, and then just like laid on the floor for a second. Was like, maybe it's fine. It's not fine. Like that's.
I like mangled this finger just as I was trying to like get my guitar skills up to snuff. Just as I was learning the accordion, mangled it completely. You want to know how? I was passing out lollipops at an anti-Trump rally and fell, and instead of protecting myself, protected the lollipops. And that's how I mangled my finger.
Olivia! But see, that's the thing, is like because for me, it's very obvious. Like if I've injured myself or it's like adjacent to my craft. When I broke my foot, I wrapped it, and like people asked me after shows, they're like, what happened? And I'm like, oh, I definitely broke my foot. I'm still doing 3 shows a day. What a dumb thing that was. But like it's very obvious. and how much work and effort goes into it, because mine is a physical skill. Whereas for music or for art or for like theater, on stage theater, there's so much that people don't associate with all those things. And even the actors themselves, and when I say actors, I mean like the person who's acting out the skill, they don't associate that with like the hours and years and money and time that has been put into that craft to be to the point where it can be front stage and shared with people.
Right. To where it can look effortless, because that's the goal. You want it to look like I don't look at my dulcimer when I'm playing because I don't have to. Does that not mean that I am not using like max 100% of my brain power at all times to move my foot at the same time as my hand?
It's so true that the height of skill is being able to sort of like do it without thinking about it. But then once it comes to a point where you're not thinking about it, you start to question if it's a skill. Like, I don't know if, Nicole, you have this because we talked about improv in some of the earlier episodes, that in terms of public speaking and being able to very easily think of what I'm saying next, I don't think that's a skill until I see it done extremely poorly or fail. And then I go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I actually added effort back into my show because it hit the point where it was too seamless. And to be fair, this is like background information. I choreographed my show in blocks, and every year I kind of rearrange the blocks and I will add in one new skill, usually something that I'm afraid of, like that I have that freaks me out. And so I'm going to like specifically choose a moment to highlight that one thing. So last year it was my neck hang. I do not like hanging from my neck because I almost hung myself one time. That almost happened. It didn't happen. It almost happened. And so I started adding in a neck hang that still has a foot lock, so I'm still supported and I can bail if I need to. But the rest of the show is basically like, I just rearranged the same skills, you know, which is fine. You know, people don't need to assume that it doesn't make it not hard, but it hit the point where it looked too smooth and too good. And so my tips started to go down because I think the idea in people's heads was like, oh, this is easy, whatever. Like, this is something that's just easy and like normal, and she just does this and like would be doing this anyway.
I've thought about adding that into mine because like I'll do all these goofy faces and things, and so now I'm trying to like incorporate in like an effort face.
Focus and like,
it's
yeah.
Like, it's working. Something's happening. I might look constipated. There's like one or the other.
What it is though that I've noticed works the best is a moment of preparation. You know, and so like oftentimes before a really hard thing, I need to get my air, like I need to be able to get some breath in my body, but I also will literally just like stop and like and then start whatever it is that I'm gonna do, and that's enough, you know, just to be like, hey guys, just remember this takes a thing.
It makes me think of Kelly from Rowan and the Rose. She performs with Voices of Liberty in Disney. And if anybody's ever seen them, they are tight. They are an awesome a cappella group. They have a soprano who's a friend of Kelly's who is out of this world, like celestial, beautiful, floating soprano. It's obscene listening to her. Like, you feel like like tingles, angel choir. But she'll see her singing this, and she'll be singing this obscenely high floaty note, and it'll just be like, and someone had to tell her, can you make any kind of motion, any little thing, so that people like can recognize that's coming out of a human face, and that it's not just the easiest thing in the world for you. So now I think that she does like a little like head tilt or something when she gets like this, just to show that this is happening and you're not imagining it.
Mm-hmm. But I think it that comes into accepting money. Mm-hmm. You know, to be like, there's effort, and then acknowledging to yourself that there's effort there, that there's work, and like for you, that there's value in the work that you do. Because we like, part of this whole COVID thing has been like, oh yes, we need doctors, we need firemen, we need police officers, depending on who you're talking to, we need teachers, we need this stuff, but we don't need artists.
And on top of that, I think, Nicole, was it something that you posted? I saw something recently where someone broke down when people say to artists during tragedies like that, and they're like, just get another job. They're like, what you are suggesting, imagine telling a doctor after years and years and years of studying his craft that you have to start back at square one at minimum wage doing something you know nothing about, that is not your passion, that you have no heart connect. Like,
Yeah.
people who say that don't seem to realize that you wouldn't say that to any other profession in as nonchalantly a way. You might say, oh, wow, this is going to be really difficult. You're going to have to do other work for a while. But you wouldn't be like, just get a job.
Yeah, and it's weird too, especially in a festival or like gig economy kind of thing. That's a little bit different from saying that to a doctor too, is that, well, my festival for February, March is canceled, but the one for April, May is still on. So no, I can't get a job in the middle of February because I might have to leave it in 6 weeks. And so I get trained for 2 weeks, I get 2 weeks of paycheck, and then I give them my 2 weeks notice. So what good is that, me trying to get that? Like, I'm not helping myself. I'm not helping that company. Like, I personally have a big, like, but I owe it to that not like company loyalty, but I owe it to the people I work with that I'm not just going to leave them hanging high and dry and suddenly leave and stuff like that.
Because you're a good person who cares.
I pretend. I play one on TV. But it's so hard to be like, well, but I have gigs next year. I have Arizona next year, so I can get a job now, but I'm still going to have to leave at some point. And why would I want that up and down and trying to find something else on top of, I just spent 4 years, this is my 4th year as a solo act. I've spent several years as a solo act. I've also been working at festivals since I've been working at festivals since 99, but that was before performing. I was performing at festivals since 2005, and this is my life. This is my everything about my life is this. This is not a job that I go and check people out at Target and I hit the clock and I come home and I don't have to think about Target till next time I go. This is, I have to make sure I post something on Facebook at this time, and I also have to make sure I send this message to this other person, and then at 10 o'clock at night I'm still editing the video that I promised someone I would post. So it's your entire life.
And I think that's the thing that people miss. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like where people think that because you only perform 2 days a week at a festival that the job just stops. It's like, a lot of the time I get like, oh, you only work 2 days a week, that must be so relaxing. I'm like, no, you guys, I train Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for like, you know, when I'm in show season, I usually am at an aerial gym for like 3 hours each of those days. Monday I take completely off. We call it None Day Monday, and I start by drinking a Bloody Mary and then watching TV. That's very important, actually, to have a day of like full decompression. And then Friday is prep day for the weekend. Right? Where you have to you're going to the grocery store, you're making sure you have everything you need for your show, you're doing all your laundry, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing, you know, like whatever those pieces are. And that takes a lot more time than you think it does. And so the assumption is like, oh, you just don't do anything. I'm like, that's just the physical prep for my show. That's not even all the other stuff. I'm going to shut up. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I am I'm not going to say that I'm happy about it because I'm kind of miserable about it, but I was like one of the first rounds of layoffs in my day job. I was one of those people who had worked 7 days a week for the past year, and people don't seem to realize that, like, for example, people would say, oh, have you watched this show? You should watch this show. And I would be like, I don't watch any TV because I work on a computer from 10 to 6. And then I practice the accordion, I practice the guitar, I figure out the finances for our entire group, I figure out what my housing will be at the next festival, I schedule a rehearsal and have a full rehearsal with the group, I attempt to feed myself with varied success. It's like, that was 2 full-time jobs. It wasn't like a weekend gig and a full-time job.
We didn't even discuss having a social life or spending time with your family, having a pet, maintaining your home, maintaining your workspace, any of those other things. Like, these are all things that often don't get taken into account. You know, and not that you have to be like, well, I cleaned my kitchen today and that was a job. I mean, it is a job, but like people don't think of it as like a thing. Yeah.
And justifying your time is a hard thing, you know, and that concept that we also have to justify our time. Like, I fight with that a lot because I am just a workaholic, and so the fact, like, oh, I can play video games now. I did like 50,000 things today. It's now video time day. I can play video games. Like, can I do that? You know, like, sometimes I have to literally call somebody and be like, tell me I can play video games now. And they're like, what? And I'm like, no, just let me know it's okay, and because then I can do it and it'll be great and I'll enjoy myself. But like, you know, I'm so used to just like gotta constantly think of the next thing you gotta do. Like I fall asleep thinking of, you know, the structure that I need to sort out for my new cart that I have to push my dulcimer around the fair. You know, like just
and because it never stops. I mean, I'm not saying that other other fields don't have this, but it's very important that, especially in this field, it never ends. Like, I've been doing the same thing. I'm playing video games, and I haven't played video games in a long time. Silver lining of COVID. But I'll be playing, and then my mind will be like, but I didn't play any guitar today. I think I need to play guitar. But then even if I have played guitar, I didn't get that one chord quite right, and I'm still kind of crap at playing guitar, so I should play more. Like, there's never a point at which this assignment is done, I'm going to allow myself to just relax.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I talk about this with my counselor all the time. Like, every message I send her, because it's an online counselor, so I can message her all week, and then we have a video appointment. But I'm like, I didn't do enough today. I woke up 10 minutes later than I wanted to. I didn't work out as long as I needed to. I emailed these 5 people, and I called this person, and I worked on this thing, and I'll list like a dozen things, and I'll be like, and it wasn't enough. Like, I still have a huge to-do list. And she's like, what do you mean it's not enough? Like, you're allowed to take time. You're allowed to go watch some Netflix or read a book. And I'm like, but I have 4 things that are sort of time sensitive that I'm putting off, and I could be spending my time doing those things that further my career. I shouldn't read this amazingly involved novel that I love. I gotta, you know, because it is never ending. And I think, and people don't, it's hard to communicate that with anybody who's not in it. And it's hard to then justify to yourself. For me, like I have the old school Super Mario Brothers on my computer and a little USB controller, and it's amazing. And I look at my computer, I'm like, I want to play Super Mario. Okay, I got to do these other things. And then I haven't played in a year. So it's hard.
Yeah, I think it's also difficult because we were talking about the concept of the Renaissance man in a previous episode and how everyone has so many interests. And whereas that makes you a well-rounded and a fun person, it's also exhausting because it's like, how many things am I going to, like, how many instruments am I going to play today? Will I try to learn how to speak Irish online? Or should I continue learning how to speak French online? Should I work on, like, the old medieval Chiconia texts today? Or should I maybe work on, like, some modern parody of some Disney song? And then also, what am I reading? And, like, having so many interests means your day is exhausting.
Yes. I have like 12 instruments in my house, and when I'm like, well, I have all these things to do, and my counselor's like, what else? I was like, I could have practiced flute and clarinet and saxophone and trumpet and trombone and this, and then she's like, do you have all of those? I was like, yes. And she's like, okay, pick 6. And like saying that is even like, that's still a lot. But I was like, okay, well, if I do flute and accordion and something else, and can I count juggling as an instrument? Because I also have juggling balls, and I also have a whip that I gotta work on, and a lasso that Adam Winrich gave me, and a Diablo, like.
And the problem is, we look at that, we're like, that's so cool. I want to do that thing too. And
I never said this, but I was heartbroken when you had a bunch of dulcimers and you were like, who wants them? Who wants to buy them? And like Asia and Mark bought themselves a dulcimer because I, since the age of 15, as we discussed earlier, have been obsessed with the hammered dulcimer. But I refused to let myself buy one of your hammered dulcimers because I'm like, you are not nearly good enough on your other instruments yet, so behave yourself. But it was such like a heart-wrenching moment for me, and now I see their dulcimer.
We're just sitting there licking it.
I'm so sorry, Liv. I'm so sorry to hear that. And yeah, I know, I totally feel your pain. And that's why I buy a lot of dulcimers, is because people just have them under their beds and they never play them. And then they sell their houses, and then their kids are like, what is this? I don't know. And I'm like, I do. Give it to me. I'll give it a home.
I feel the same way, because like, I keep, like, I haunt the sales on Discount Dance and like All About Dance and stuff. I do. And because a lot of what I've ended up doing for like costuming for shows is I modify pieces, because like, look, I totally sewed things from scratch. Do I want to continue to do that? No, I don't. It's very effortful. I also have a very long torso, and customizing patterns for Kaitlin is one of the worst things ever. It's a whole thing. And so I literally will buy pieces, and then I'm like, oh, I can rhinestone these. I can do this. I can do, you know, like I'm going to paint them and do all these things on top of them. It's going to be so cool. And now they're literally sitting in my basement right now. And it's one of the, where I'll be in the middle. I'm playing Witcher 3 right now, and I'm on the second expansion, and I'm a completionist. Like, that's the problem, is I'm a completionist. If I could just, like, get through the main storyline and do a couple of things. But no, I've been playing this game for, like...
I'm in Arc Skellig. I've been in Arc Skellig for, like, the past month, dude. Like, I can't get out of there, man. No,
and it's hard because Skellig is, like, as you're there...
It's a completionist nightmare, because you're like, and there's this other one, and there's this other one. Like, I spent, like, an entire hour, like, going down this one line and, like, fighting this one dragon, and then I get to this town, and then there's, like, an obvious glitch. Like, something, like, I killed all the beasts, and then the town doesn't show as, like, done. And I'm just like... No, because I didn't save but for like an hour back. And then, so because I had to shut the game off, cue the previous load, and do it all again, and make sure that I didn't...
To make sure that it shows up, yeah.
Make sure that it hit the target, because there was like a known bug for that one town that like if you didn't do it in a certain order, it would like mess up the rest of the game. And I was just like, so that was me.
I still have one for when I'm level 4, right? So I was level 4, and it won't say it's complete. It's the werewolf one.
Oh,
where you have to, like, feed it the flesh in the right order or something, like, it's kind of weird, and it was like, and it just won't say. So, the point is, I am still playing Witcher 3, continuing to play Witcher 3 on the expansions, Wine and Blood, or whatever it's called, and it's really good, like, it's really good, it's an amazing game, and the universe is beautiful, and I will be, like, in the middle of doing something, and then I'm like, I should go redo my calendar to make sure that everybody knows what's going on the CDN calendar for the next 6 weeks. That's a better use of my time right now. And then I'm just like, stop, boop, and then I go into work mode. And, like, I don't take time to just, like, do nothing or feel okay. Like, when COVID first started, I actually had this weird shutdown for, like, a while where my brain was like, explode. And a lot of it was because didn't really know what was going on. The $600 PUA hadn't been passed yet, and even when it did, because I'm an independent contractor, but also have W-2s, and have worked in so many different states, mine was a mess. And so, like, in PA, the cutoff, like, the financial cutoff was $10,000. You had to make $10,000 inside of that state in the last, like, 18 months or whatever. I made $9,964.
Oh, that's painful.
To qualify for the regular unemployment, right? Which would have been slightly more than what I'm getting now through the PUA general fund. And that's fine, or what I was getting before it all went away. And so, like, my case got lost and, like, put into this folder and just lived over there for, like, 2 months. And I have a partner who's incredibly supportive and was like, you're not going to starve. You're not, like, don't worry about rent for right now. I'll make sure that everything's okay. Like, you will be okay. But there's something about having your own money, right? Like, having your own car, having your own money, or having some form of transportation so that you have agency to do things and make choices about your own life, right? And so I went into this, like, weird spiral for a long time. I was just like, I'm literally gonna do as little as possible. And I was teaching fitness classes, right? So, like, I've been teaching through the whole of the coronavirus, but that was it. So I was working out a lot in front of other people, with other people, and that was it. That was all that I was doing. And then I was just like, I'm gonna sit and play video games and watch TV. And then started working on a bunch of the projects that we've been working on this whole time. And then after that, it was like, I couldn't find that balance again, because they're at the beginning of COVID and, like, shelter in place and stuff, everybody was like, oh, this is a really good time to take time for yourself. It's really good to do this. And then it hit the point of, oh, now we all have to get back to work.
Right, but for us who can't, like, I can't go and exhaust myself for 12 hours every weekend right now. Like, I can't. Because it's not, right. Because every day I wake up, every day I log in and I work on, projects and videos and audio and getting better at doing those. Like, that's the thing that I have time for right now, is I have time to actually do all the Google searches and all the YouTubes and watch that to learn how to make the dang video look like this. You know, like that's all what I'm doing right now. But like normally it's just like I can't do that because it's got to be done. It's got to be done yesterday.
And honestly, like before when we started recording this, we were talking about microphones. Like, because I'm not like, guys, I don't do digital stuff. I do in-person, immersive work, interactive things that have to do with feelings and physicality and, like, intensity and emotional intensity, stuff like that. And I'm over here like, how do I find the best mic for the best price that I can use that's a plug and play because I'm a troglodyte when it comes to tech. And, like, and it's not that it's not a good idea to start growing, you know, and learning different skills, but it's also like, oh my God, how many more things do I need to learn how to do? But because of this, and we have no end in sight, we don't know,
No, yeah.
you know? And so like, okay, I guess I will just keep making it work until my head falls off.
That's the one. Yeah. Speaking of which, I think we're going to call it an end right there, friends.
Our heads are falling off.
Thank you so much for joining us, friends. This has been Ren Talks. We broadcast on the Digital Ren Faire Facebook page if you want to catch our video podcast, and we are currently available on iTunes and Spotify. And I am Victoria Van Arnam. I perform as the Lady Victoria, and you can find me on all of your social media at the Lady Victoria.
And I'm Nicole Skelly, and my show is The Gwendolyn Show, and you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch under Gwendolyn Show.
And I am Olivia Harding. I am Liv the Druid from Music the Gathering, and you can find us at Music the Gathering Band on Facebook and Instagram, or at musicthegathering.com.
And I'm Kaitlin Chin, performing as Draiku Aerial Silks at various Renaissance fairs. You can also find me on Facebook, either as Kaitlin Chin or Draiku Aerial Silks, or Mermaid Kaitlin as my mermaid persona, my mersona. Or you can find me on Instagram at The Chinster, or Cirque Nuit, spelled CirqueDuNuit. And that's also our website.com. So, yeah. And thank you so much, you guys, for having me one more time. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'm sorry if I, like, talked a bunch. Like I said, I've got feelings about things, and it's just nice to talk to other women about stuff, too.